I have considered the defense counsel's request for further summation examination of the jury, and I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Gave him the sneezes? Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all members of the jury this time around, it seems. Without one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find the fault in the previous witness' testimony. So, the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued at any other way. That means, I'm afraid, that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman, and how? Those 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was, thinking this might be hard. But Mr. Naruhodo, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. Okay, oh, no pressure. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared. Oh, yes, my lord. Okay, focus. Clearly, the key to this summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say Mrs. Garadeb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garadeb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the 2. Yes, that's what we have to find. Using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garadeb and how she reacts, even to the things other people say. Yeah, I don't think he's ever gonna change his mind. He's already pissed off about the other thing. Okay, he's remembering. This juror has been like the pivotal one. He's been giving us stuff. Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that's a common custom here in Great Britain. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold? But how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows? The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along, but something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yeah, I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions, just a connection might do the trick. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. I mean, did he add? Did he? I mean, this is connected, because literally... Oh, he did add. These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Oh, exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Geradev household, and Mr. Geradev had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Oh, my hat. Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Geradev. Oh, dearie me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What? I beg your pardon. What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, alright then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward. You've managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Geradev's formal statement. Okay, it was open. I think he's good. I think he just wanted to connect the two events, right? Like, oh, like the window, like it could have been like if you connect it, then yeah, I'll be I'm pretty sure we did him. I'm pretty sure. And then this guy, we need more information. Yeah, I think we need more information from him. Say something. You were also helpful before. You just want to get this over with. How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, You know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Don't even go there. There must be some way to jog his memory about this. So he has something he just can't remember, I guess. The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrett told us he'd been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you've come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man, I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as well as you know. I really don't. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it. Oh, did you remember, sir? What is it, juror number 5? You know something? I've remembered what it was. That memory I'd blocked out. Oh. It was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett, or the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just got back home from after work. I put my hand in the pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost the day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear, stuck into the wall next to me, it did. About an inch deep. No words. Just terror. I could smell it then, you know. That god-awful stench of the Thames. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. And you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Okay, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. Okay, a woman in rage will hurl anything. I mean, would this really be connected? It sounds so far-fetched. I mean, I guess this could also, would she throw, I guess it's implying that she would throw a knife out the window. She would throw a knife out the window, Jesus Christ. Those two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Okay, good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? It's true, he has been saying they contradict the entire time. Okay, explain. Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garrett's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrett household to the street below. What's that now? After all, Mrs. Garrett could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala? As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us the yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What was it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least, this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garrett household to the scene of the crime was... I mean, is there like any indication? Oh, the tip is broken, right? I don't know, maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe they'll find it somewhere. Juror number 4, Mrs. Garrett. What now? I must apologize in advance for this, but I need to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Good Lord, counsel, what on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrett was hurling anything she could at her husband, who'd been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh, even my missus hasn't got an aim like that. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't understand, but that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now. Oh my. Mrs. Garrett, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh, my lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman? I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. We did it! Oh, congratulations! So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial will continue. Now then, Lord Van Zykes, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourselves better with the relative positions of the places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Geradev household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Geradev's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters. Oh, that's a little farther than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, once only hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards to land in the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Miss Susato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea a fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, Juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Geradev, must be called to testify and submit to a cross-examination. Saint alive! A cross-examination of a juror? Order! Well, this is highly irregular. It's unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. And unnecessary. Lord Van Zykes? There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Royley Beat reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. You make me swoon. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Geradev. Believe me, a London bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Geradev house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. He was asleep! He fucking fell asleep! I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course. Sorry. I found it. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's room. Okay. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see the problem then. Good. Your education in windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't. That can't be. Did you see that, Rolly? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. You're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. My lord. Oh good, another desperate situation. How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir, and the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the Fourth written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you Bobby's good for his word, while rubbing my tired eyes admittedly. Sah! No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett? Oh, I see. You should have said so earlier. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer it to the fullest of my abilities. There's a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, just one thing. Yes? I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard, so I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So, to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal, but I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll try. Okay, let's read it. Can we open it? Okay, a policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. A patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day. Any crimes fall... Wait, any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with the initial investigations. Oh, right, it wasn't... He said it wasn't on his beat, so... I think that's important, right? That he he had to... he said he got help. Like, she said that he left... Or, she said that she left to get help and he stayed, even though he was asleep. Okay, like, windows, sure. By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see, so they're restricted as to how much they open. And therefore, anything thrown out of the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here is the location where objects would have fallen. Yes. Directly opposite the scene of the crime on the other side of a rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top hinge casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday. Okay. Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry? You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rowley's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that's Street Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rowley's beat and the next one. Isn't that right? Constable Beat. Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with the interviewing the occupants of the Garrett household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garrett household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it as well? Outside Mr. Garrett's house? Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we would never have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But that's the life of a Bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are Bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rowley for all his hard work. Don't you think so? That must be it. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me. I'll take care of it immediately. Okay, just... Is there like a... Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time. Never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. I can swear to that on the yard's honor, sir. Really? That seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir? Strange? Seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of the Lion's Pride was originally in the Gerdev household, so the question remains, How did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Aha! Could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Lawyer, sir. Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I wasn't really... I mean, what is she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman on my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. B, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Rolly won't. Duly noted, Mrs. B. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? I know what I saw. Okay. Mrs. B, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did that evening, I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. And I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction. Oh, yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross. Constable B, is there a problem? Huh? No, sir, no problem at all, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, yes. I was just remembering that the same thing happened that evening is all. You mean Mrs. B lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine, but she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly's so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Huh? Oh, yes. But that was just between us. No talking about it to anyone else. You have to promise. Oh, really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. Okay, do we press this statement too? You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on? Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see? That's when I spotted my bouquet again. But the funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. B, the victim is not deceased. Oh, I was flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably? That's right. Silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Although, I'm going to blame the bouquet this time. I can't think how it got there. I really can't. So, the bouquet somehow moved from one side of Briar Road to the opposite. Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is, I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly bought me, with that change from the gutter he spent so long collecting. By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zykes, where did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garadev household. In front of the Garadev's house? Although it wasn't noticed until the morning as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir. Could I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial. You hear me? I want it back. Oh, good grief. Rest assured, I shall do my very best not to forget. Okay, so we have the rose. Oh, wait. Did he not see this rose then? I'm gonna say. Can you inspect the rose? Like, yeah, if she dropped it there. I guess he wouldn't have seen it because they said it doesn't cast light there. So he probably wouldn't have seen it. It's very stylish paper the flower's wrapped in, isn't it? It's just an old newspaper. Oh, I suppose it's because I'm not used to seeing English print. It looks so exotic to me. I see. Is something wrong? Oh, no. I was just thinking that if you wrapped a stone-baked sweet potato in English newspaper, it might look like some sort of fancy cake. You do love your cakes. An English rose. It's such a beautiful flower. Oh, this is a rose, is it? I've never seen one before. Do you not take an interest in flowers? I wouldn't say that exactly, but I do know 3 types at least. Gosh, 3? Yes, plum blossom, peach blossom, and cherry blossom. Perhaps you should consider branching out, learning some that aren't fruit tree based, for example. Okay. I don't think nothing's wrong with it. Hey, did you see this rose? It should have been there. You claim, Constable Beat, that there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene, but that cannot be. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policemen assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby. Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry bloom can be so described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street back into the gutter where it belongs. Meager? But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Rowley didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garrett's book. Mr. Garrett's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street. But in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking sounds like you think my Rowley's done something wrong. Now don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says, wittering on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garrett's come around. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garrett, but deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime. Scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called tampering. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it for a very subtle but compelling reason. Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend, who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Maybe the husband, like he's trying to protect her, because like she was the one who was throwing shit out the window, right? Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you trying to say is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime? I'm pretty sure it was him. But then I guess he wouldn't really have a reason because he didn't even know about it. Unless the husband's lying and he moved the body because see, I knew it was kind of, what was it? Oh shoot, I can't even look at my damn court record. No! Because he said it was like the fine line between his beat and somebody else's, right? But what if it did happen on his beat, but he didn't want to like deal with it, so he moved the body. He moved the body across the street so he wouldn't have to deal with it. I guess. Because the man's tired. That would explain how he missed the bouquet. But I mean, right? That would explain, like he did. Well, I don't know. He didn't see it. Wait, but then how did the book? The book ended up on the other side, so it was after? Oh yeah, it must have been after. Like she probably got hit with something. It got knocked the fuck out. But then how was she? Maybe was it him? Did he make it so she held the book? Like, is that just like? Because I mean, technically they would have a reason, but there was no one else there. Like, they would have, like, yeah, that's true. If they tried to tamper with it, he would have seen them, or I'm assuming he would have seen them if he wasn't sleeping, you know, or somebody else could have seen them. I don't know. So, like, and also I don't think they realized what was happening, like, down there. So I don't think it was them. Although they're kind of like the ones who maybe caused it. I don't think they would want to, like, cover it up that bad. I'm pretty sure it was him because he says that the beat wasn't his, but it was so close to him. But what if he was lying and he said that it was on his beat, but he just wanted to move the body so it wasn't his problem? Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rowley Beat, it was you. What? A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? Oh, what nonsense. Why would my Rowley do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Miss Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes that you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. What about that Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it. If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. Exactly. See, like, if anyone else came down, like if it was the couple upstairs that realized what they did and tried to move, he would have seen them, or, you know, felt them. I don't know. Maybe he would have sensed them and woke up, or something. Or maybe they wouldn't even have tried if they probably saw a cop was there, because he was still in his uniform. So, you know. Oh. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Well. First you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim the crime scene was tampered with, but there's only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime: to hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering, and until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the yeah, it was his wedding anniversary. He probably did not want to spend it doing work. Have you managed to solve it? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need not point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for his alleged tampering. Okay. Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide. Where she fell. Where the victim fell. Because if it was on his side, then he would have to deal with it. He just didn't want to deal with it that day. He wanted to go home. He wanted to have a nice anniversary with his wife. Where the victim fell to the ground. That is what his Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road, we saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everybody has been led to believe, but in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponi's friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening? On this side! But that's on the opposite side of the road? I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Gerardeb's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved. What did move was the scene of the crime. Good gracious. Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard, but these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog on the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid, that was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. But the constable overlooked one thing. What? What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Dyke said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously, which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond? Constable Rolly Beat? Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? It isn't true, is it? What the lawyer said was all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream. A terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything. Come out. Everything exposed. Only, it seems... it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly. Order! What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Rolly, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it? Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation. For everything. I have a possible explanation for why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman? And yet, Lord Van Dyke, it is the foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defense, if you please. Okay, sorry, my mom was just texting me. Okay, yes, my lord. Now then, I think you better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive for Constable Beat's actions? It must have been like the updated case file. The one where it says that it was like that close. It was like right next to his beat. Like that would explain like, oh, it so happened to be like, you know, it so happened that it wasn't on mine, so it's someone else's problem. It's this piece of evidence here. No, he doesn't. See. Look, it was a good attempt, okay? It made sense because it was right there. Okay, okay, okay. Oh, maybe this one? Oh yeah, it was. See, it was that one. It was that one that I was saying that might be important. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat. When a crime is discovered, a policeman must assist with investigation. Okay, it's this thing. It's the rules. He didn't follow, or he tried to, whatever, the rules. I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I've only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I've learned that, though honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, I was about to say word, but I saw the L there at the last minute. Made it sound really weird, didn't it? For example, keeping the peace, looking after the citizens of his beat in all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young Bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet, my lord. Oh, yes, it was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal. When he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of him, what must have gone through the man's mind? But just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Aha! Constable Beat. Is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's alright. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh. Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Good gracious. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done? It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then, it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight, of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then, when I opened my mouth to speak, It just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat, so you'll have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Meerschaum Street and then... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted... just that one night to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. See? Oh! And so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought, well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon? Oh, of course he did. Otherwise, my Rolly would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. Oh, I see your meaning now. But God... but God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, that was my fault. I should have never dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry. And can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from one side of the road to the other in total? Oh, 4 it was. Yes, definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsme, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garredev household, of course. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's how I found it. How you found it? What do you mean? When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh, yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. Interesting. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make it a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zykes? I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir, what will become of my Rolly? What will happen? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Now, please don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late. Now, leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. Okay. One last thing, Constable. Sir, let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir? You mean to say? Leave. Now. This trial is not over yet. Not yet over. Sir. Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here, principally that the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else, another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Van Sykes, is this true? Very well. Name the person, if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. The prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. Well, you will name this other person. I guess it could be them now. It could be them now. Or her, because she's the one who threw the damn knife. The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadev. Me? Me? Oh dearie me. That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garadev, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garadev. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out but over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open top hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garadev. This knife, though one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? Huh? I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there and all that regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes. No, I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4. Oh. Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out. But that's just a common or garden knife. It could come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying? Please, Mrs. Garadev. Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injure someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So, yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now. Chop chop. Do your worst. Well, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zykes. I'm going to have to testify? Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today, witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. Oh, dearie me. So, I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garadeb, and mark my words, if in this court of law today we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, hey, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garadeb, and I'm, well, I'm a juror, and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh dearie me. Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Oh, I didn't know you were here. Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But what about your knee? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. I presume you are Mr. John Garadeb? Yes, sir. Former 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th... of the what? Okay, former 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action and now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Well, yes, him. Quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of our British court, or the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I noticed if 1 or 2 went missing, I'm afraid. If that bally thing in the victim's back really was one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although, an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony would shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that... Wait. In combat, one's focus One's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Van Zykes may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth. Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. I guess the reason really not really important. She was just mad. Knocked over. I mean, that's true, yeah. Okay, maybe... Even though the room was on fire? As far as I was concerned at the time. It was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown. How did she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day? In all honesty, I don't recall, but I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge, a napkin. Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garadev. Don't shoot! Sorry, I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit and everything. A good great woman, we're not at home right now. This is a court of law. Oh dearie me, I'm so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot here? Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened, Your pipe, sir? Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did. Yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see. Your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now. You are one to exaggerate, aren't you? I wonder what we should make of this account. It could be important. But how is it? I mean, maybe they didn't fall out the window. Like, maybe it just so happened that the knife and the book were the only things to fall out of their apartment in this onslaught. Somehow. Like, a fire poker and a brick. Like, you'd think you would notice those. Like, on the street below. Now, the defense believes Mr. Garadev's remarks just now to be of great significance. This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife and pipes as well as hearts may be broken. Sentimental wisdom perhaps, but hardly worth of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipes, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh dearie me, there you go again, trying to ingratiate? What are these words? What are these words? You're so for the young lady. Very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. Okay. Okay, he has a chunk missing here. There's a small nick out of the bowl here. Look, it appears to have been made relatively recently. And see how there are little scrapes and dents all over it? It's clearly a well-loved pipe. Yes, you're right. It seems to me recently that being well-loved goes hand in hand with, with getting some battle scars. This particular nick is catching my eye, though, because it's clearly new. It looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason, it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout out a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garrett's dressing gown. I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garrett, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that or he can't afford to replace it. Oh, he was smoking it like this? Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe here. Yes, I saw it. Something's stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What is this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. This is the tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garrett's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Is something wrong? I don't really know. There's just something. But I can't quite put my finger on what it is. You remember this? Oh, that's the tiny fragment of metal we found inside Mr. Garrett's pipe. Yes, and just maybe. Oh my, it's a perfect fit. Somehow I just knew. Oh, it doesn't get updated? Whoa. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Susato, we have some new evidence to work with. Okay, we examined it. Well, thank you. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Oh, I guess it was because we found... Wait, yeah, we found this. That he somehow didn't notice while smoking. Unless he wasn't even smoking it. Maybe, I don't know, he just likes to put it in his mouth? Mr. Garrett, could I ask you to take a look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? You used to call me Dead-Eyed Deb back in the regiment, of course. But that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does. Dearie me, it's rather wearing being asked about every other letter and every other word. You must D very dussy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear to be at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garrett's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify? Yeah, signify, counsel. Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, counsel. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence when paired with this fragment? The knife! This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece of a small piece at the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim. No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garredeb's pipe. Good grief, Lord Van Zykes? I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh! Order! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So Van Zykes has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garredeb's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles she did. Oh dearie me. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garredeb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garredeb, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good lord. Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garredeb's pipe. Then, the chances of that happening are 1,000,000 to 1. And yet there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out the open window. Oh. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garredeb's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear, oh. A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument. Sorry? But after all, it's just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because, you see, it's spoiled by an insurmountable inconsistency. An insurmountable... what? Lord Van Zykes, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... oh. That's right, you silly little man. Now, Joan, old thing, what are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself into the victim's back. Order. Quite right, you see, that's exactly right. If the knife had fallen on her from above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well... but she got hit by a book beforehand. She could have gotten knocked the fuck out. and then it came, you know, and then the knife hit her. He's lost for words. Look, I knew it. I never liked his theory in the first place. I don't know, though, what really did happen. It would appear the defense has made a rather spectacular blunder. If a theory has even one inconsistency, I cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. Like, are we forgetting about the damn book? She could have gotten hit by the book. Like, bro, if a person lobbed it and then gravity did its thing, you know, I'm sure it would knock her the fuck out. I was so sure we were on the right track, but now the way has been blocked completely by just one simple inconsistency. Or, in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency and the theory will stand. Miss Susato, you mustn't worry. You were just caught off guard, that's all, and your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed. Are we forgetting? We're forgetting about this damn book? This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes. If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way that it could have hit her on the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There is a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency, that can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness. Utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is because she got hit by the book first. This, the fourth book found at the scene. This is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Garadeb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all now know, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. Quite so, as part of his wholesale transplanting of this crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true, however, as a part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. You know, but what made you place the book in the victim's hand? Well, it's because it's how I found it. The victim was already holding the book. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own volition. And clearly, that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd be doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? By jingo. I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh, dearie me. We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garadeb household onto the pavement below, at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. Oh, like she bent down to pick it up, and then she got stabbed by the... Oh, I thought she got hit by the book. I guess it would make sense that, like, it would be in her hand if she just kind of got knocked out with it in her hand. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Yes, Mrs. Garadeb, and what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens. And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. And at the same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Well, I never. It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb, the very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Poor Mrs. Garadeb. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book. I threw the knife as well. John, dear. It's alright. I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry. You didn't even want to change his outfit? Like, dude, you have like a hole in the back. Lord Van Zykes, what news of Mrs. Garadeb? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events had left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There is no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could have easily been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim was being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange, we've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. How wonderful. That woman is out of danger, it seems. Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Soseki Natsume... yes? On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it is me who should be begging your pardon. Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again, in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure that the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she had been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me. Poor Soseki. His imagination really has got the better of him. Yes, poor man. So when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should have never dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires, and for that, I am truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think, one that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by this spirit and led to false conclusions, but thanks to Lord Van Zykes and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord. In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decision regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. Sitting in for the old bean while she's out of action, you know, but I know what her decision would be. Does this mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman. Very well, Mr. Soseki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you not guilty. Hey, confetti! Oh, confetti and fireworks! Damn, they got everything. And finally, Mr. Natsume. Oh, yes, Lord, sir. You are now a free man once more. It is my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh, yes, sir, of course. On my life, I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. Oh, Lockham. Wait, you mean me? Of course. Is there any other Lockham here? Is there even one? Compared to the original Lockham student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last I'm free! I'm free! Joyful, joyous, jubilant, jubilation! Heady, hearty, happiness, hurrah! Oh, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. Would it be so hard just to say that then? Lockham, you did it. You saved me from the brink. Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that. Lovely, loyal Lockham lawyer. Yes? I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear, I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. But today, you, Lockham lawyer, gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold, the best barrister ever born!" Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. An anecdote? Is that what was to become of all my hard work? Now there you are, my dear fellows. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I see I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. Oh? The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's just finished. What? No. Then my haste was in vain. It's you, Herlock Sholmes. Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes. Oh, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters had taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or that prison cell. I simply couldn't place that curious face. Oh, yeah, in the light. Charming. This is all your fault, Herlock Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you I have placed you now. Oh, I have placed you now? You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Had she been taken to the hospital more urgently, I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human, after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Priceless. Oh, I am sorry, really, but that was quite priceless. Poor Soseki. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And it would seem you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits and now by the Reaper. Oh, Lord Van Zeiss. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. It will be all right, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I will protect you. Hi-ya! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan? Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh? It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize that it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. Well, that's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or, in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not it at all. The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempted to pen a work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki. Could be an interesting read. I guess before he became famous. And what about Miss Susato and yourself? Sorry? What about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustache compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London, and only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room? But what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up for with a floor, a ceiling, and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit? Oh yes. It tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. Well, think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me? Really? Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up in the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of? Oh, this is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to taking lodgings in the great detective's office. Says attic. I'm too overcome for words. So, suggesting we look elsewhere is out, then. Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you. And yes. Wonderful. Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long. Somebody's happy. Lockham, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume, it's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we're going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan, but Lockham will meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then I'll be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. I've little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Soseki's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home. 222... I guess 221 makes sense, I guess. 221B Baker Street. So this is to be our new office. Yes, our office? I rather like the sound of that. Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. Like whatever he wanted. I don't even know what he wanted. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place? Oh, Mr. Sholmes. Yes, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it. Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at these premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. Sorry? London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows. Shadows? What do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So, once again, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke, but it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. Oh my god, we got one more. Oh my god.